All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Guild Wars 2 Guru's State of the Game. My name is Grouch. Today I'm joined by our good friend John Sharp once again. How's it going, sir?
What's up, guys?
We got Supcutie, who mains Mesmer. He plays on Absolute Legends. And we have Battosai. Unfortunately, Battosai does not have webcam today, but he'll be down here in the bottom left-hand corner for you guys. Say hello, Battosai.
Hi guys, just think I'm waving.
Okay, I'm pretending. And then we have Mr. Biceps over here. We got Zombify from SOAC Red. You want to wave?
Up?
Wave, man.
What's
there
up?
There we go. All right, guys. So we got I guess we got a pretty good list of things to go through today. We'll touch on a little class balance, a couple general overall things, and I guess the main source of inspiration we had for today, kind of coming out the show notes and whatnot, was Supcutie's thread that he made on the PP forums, kind of like a list of all the issues that people thought were kind of the main things going on in the game right now. So the first one we want to touch on today is going to be, I guess we'll do PvP incentives and the reward system. And I figured what we would do here is I'd kind of like to hear from the players a little bit. If we can keep the responses kind of short and whatnot, and then we'll wrap it up with John on each subject, and we'll kind of just go from there and see what the plans are. And I guess take some feedback and input or whatever. So Supcutie, feedback or reward system, incentives. Is it there? What needs to improve? What's going on, man?
I think that currently a lot of people have to find their own incentives through, their pride in their winning rather than getting skins. I think that there could be a lot more that players are offered. And one thing I wanted to talk about specifically is in PvE, you can get almost every skin in the game relatively easily just by putting in time, even though cultural gear costs a lot of gold. But I would argue that in PvP, if you put the time in to make, say, 50k glory, I mean, if you put the equal amount of time in PvE, you could buy some tier 3 cultural stuff, right? And I think that the way I see it, PvE players can get a lot of skins for PvP, but PvP players can't really afford the skins that are there's a barrier of entry, which is the gold. And I understand the reason for separation, but I think that could be a route taken, making PvP players be able to make more gold. And then also, one last thing is the rank system. I think there was a thread where someone calculated that playing at an above average rate, it would take over 2 years. Yeah, it would take over 2 years to get from rank 70 to rank 80.
By design.
And so that was why I was saying that I think it would add more incentive for people if they could just farm out just certain pieces of gear that they want. Even if it would take longer per piece, then people could make what they want or whatever. Just me.
All right, Beto, you want to take it away?
There we go. I'm here. Sorry, just a little delay. I can totally agree on basically everything you said already. Maybe some special items for it was in Guild Wars 1, some special back pieces, for example, for winners of tournaments. That would be great as well. I think that's a great incentive to play.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I don't know if just the armor enough via rank system is enough incentive. I do agree with some kind of special thing for PvP. Just like PvE, they get certain weapon skins that you can't get in PvP. There's certain craftable weapon skins that you just can't get. So I agree there should be maybe something that is worth going after instead of just the basic skin that you could probably get in PvE.
Right. No, we so you guys know we agree with pretty much every point you've made, which is why we've talked about we wanted to revise the reward system, but those are the exact same things that we are looking at doing, is making sure that, the things that you get in PvE, you can also get in PvP, and also just looking at, up until now, we've not really talked too openly about the fact that, you don't get gold in PvP. So we're starting to question that now. Is that something that we should just let PvP players do? So you guys should just know that's a very serious discussion that's going on here. And when I say serious, I mean that we actually are having the PvP team, the balance team, we're having that discussion with the economists. We're having that discussion with the Michael Bryans, the guys, just this mind for economies. We're just is this okay? We're just looking at, can we do gold sinks that will actually take that stuff back out of the economy if we put gold into the PvP economy, which is very important, right? We don't want to blow up the world's gold because we just give you a lot of gold stuff in PvP, but we don't give you the sinks. So we're starting to do all that stuff now and look at really introducing that. But down the road, that's something you will probably see, but that's something that we're very seriously looking at right now.
I guess you're looking at incentivizing PvEers to come in over to PvP?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you looked at gosh, what was it? The last guild. You were actually on it. The last Guildcast, right? You guys were talking about like, hey, I'd love to go play PvP. I'd try it, but if I'm in PvP, then I'm not working towards my legendary. I'm not getting the gold that I need. So I would have to like delay or pause my progress in PvE just so I can go do PvP, which is a huge barrier to entry. So that's something that we're looking at as okay. We've had multiple people tell us this. We have to revise this system because this is not working for a lot of people. So listening to you guys say that stuff, reading the forums, that's something that we accept. We've got to look at that. Now, before it was when we shipped, it was probably the right call to split those two, just make sure it wasn't confusing, make sure that everything worked the way it did. But now that the game's been out the length that it has been, a lot of people just see that as a barrier to entry, and that's just not good. So we've got to revise that.
So reading between the lines a little bit here, are you saying that we might be able to progress towards legendaries in PvP? It kind of sounded like that.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what people want to build towards. You talk about special back items or some other things that might be coming out soon, special things that you only get for winning tournaments. And if you see this certain item, which is already kind of working, if you see that, you know that person won a tournament. There is no other way to get that. That person has to be a badass. It's not rank. It's not time played. That person just did something that you can only get from placing high in a tournament. So,
all right,
that'd be awesome.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about with the last patch. We're going to be kind of jumping around here a little bit. But one of the main changes, and this is not really a class-specific change, but just kind of overall, the blind and weakness changes.
Sure.
Obviously, like the blind thing was huge, and then weakness, completely changed the way the mechanic worked. I guess for both of them, really, just like the way that you are unable to pull a blind off now by attacking just air. I guess we'll just start with Cutie and kind of just give me your overall impression of how you feel it's affected the game overall.
I think making it so blinds can't be removed by just attacking the air is a fine choice, but you just need to adjust for it because warriors pushing for more Condi cleanse is fine, but I think a better solution might be to look at less Condi damage / Condi AoE / Condi application overall. Just looking at warriors specifically, they're kited and are useless against many of the team comps that are currently seen because of necro, blind, and weakness and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, Beto?
Weakness was already pretty strong before, and I think it's a good change. It's kind of countering all that high burst that's going on, but it's on the other hand, it's just increasing all the Condi cleave that's going on, and I think it's a little bit too much at the moment, especially with all the AoEs over the place basically. Blind is fine. Maybe look at the duration a bit. On some lines, it might be too long.
Yep.
All right, Zom.
I agree on the blind change. I think it increased the skill ceiling, so I'm all for that. Yeah, as Supcutie said, you might just readjust certain skills for it, but I do like it. As for weakness, I don't fully agree. It was really strong beforehand. It was used mainly maybe to shut down an Ellie from getting a ton of endurance with Vigor. But it wasn't really something that's going to save you, damage-wise.
Right.
So I like the change. Maybe it could be adjusted a little bit more, but I do like the change.
Oh, do you like the numbers of it, or do you like the application of it?
Playing a Necro, I'm putting weakness out everywhere. So
sure.
Application's nice. It might be able to be toned down a little bit.
Sure.
But you guys can play around with that if you want.
Yeah. I think as a blind user, it's good because then it's more reliable because you're like, okay, he's blinded. He needs to actually attack something to get it off, and then you can play around that. So I think that's can be good.
And that's kind of, you guys have kind of hit the nail on the head with what we were trying to do with both of those changes. We want it to be more skill-based for the blind so that I get the blind off, and exactly as you guys are saying, I know I've just bought myself one attack. What do I need to do with that one attack? Maybe I throw that blind right before I go to heal. You know what I mean? That kind of idea. That's what we're looking for. But with the weakness, too, where, we think that the Vigor stuff was always going to be there, but now we're looking at, okay, does this shut down the physicals too much? Have we pushed it too much into the, Condi spam? Is that just too strong now? Do we need to adjust that stuff? So those are the things we're watching. Which is why we're watching the games that you guys are playing, the ESL stuff that just happened, watching games on live just to see if, can the meta adjust to this stuff? That's what we need to watch for. Does the meta adjust to those two new conditions and the way that they're working in their new forms? And are they going to be able to adjust, or do we need to backpedal a little bit and tone those down, like on the durations, which is a great point.
All right. Well, since we're talking about, I guess, condies, we'll kind of talk about boons here for a moment. There was in that thread, someone mentioned retail, and how for some classes, like I mentioned this yesterday as an example, like engineer, if you throw a grenade, that's instantly 3 ticks of retail on you because there's 3. Well, generally, if you're using the trade anyways, it's gonna be 3 nades on you and 3 ticks of retail. Is there any plans to maybe tone that down or possibly add an ICD, or do you think retail's in a good spot?
We've talked about doing both of those actually. The ICD is a great point, which you guys can maybe comment on in a second. The thing we're worried about doing ICDs is that sometimes they're invisible. So we've even talked about maybe the ICD just procs on one of the guys so that, okay, I can't get retaliation from that source again, but now I can get, from source B, they can still give me retal, and then source C, but then now A and B cannot. C gets 1 hit, and then you have to go to D. But you can imagine, though, as a player, that gets very hard to figure out what's happening, where is that coming from. These things are invisible. So that's one of those places where we think that retail is a good counter to just mass AoE DPS, so we want to make sure that we don't take that away, because then we push the game right back towards where it was before, where it was just mass AoE DPS. It wasn't even condies, it was the AoE DPS. And before retail was actually something you feared, you didn't care. You would just you'd see retail, you keep throwing grenades and stuff through it. So we got to keep that balance just right, so that we don't make it too strong, but we can't make it too weak at the same time. So again, we're just watching what you guys are doing in the meta right now.
All right, Cutie, how do you feel in retail now that you can't avoid it all in Blurred Frenzy?
Yeah, no, I agree with Sharp. I think putting an internal cooldown is definitely a good consideration. I know that it's meant to be like act as counterplay versus multi-hit and AoE, but sometimes it acts as almost like a straight up counter. Like NGs, they like, I mean, obviously in World v World it's different than sPvP, but like in World v World they go up to the Zerg and they're like, okay, I actually can't even damage them because I'll kill myself faster than I'm doing damage to them. And in PvP, like you see some of that. And I know that even Mesmer Shatter, I mean, it's not affected by retail in the same way NG is, even though we might be doing the same relative amount of damage in that period of time. And so it's kind of just like a small disconnect between damage and how retail is affecting those sources.
Bato.
Yeah, I can agree on that as well. It's a great counter to the AoE stuff that is going on, but I don't know. Yeah, the internal cooldown on that would be pretty good, I guess. I don't know. You need to figure out the timing right, because currently it might be too strong in some cases, and otherwise you don't want the AoE to take over again.
Yeah.
I agree with all of them. I fully agree. I really don't have too much to say on that subject.
One last thing I could say too is that also it might be one of the cases where it's performing the function correctly, maybe in high-level PvE like in Fractals and in PvP, but maybe in World vs. World it's just too harsh of a counter. So maybe we could adjust the damage that you would get there, so we can kind of play with those numbers a little bit. Is another option that we have before we go to an ICD, which is kind of invisible. So maybe just the amounts. The same thing we did with Confusion, right? Because there was a time when that was just the only condition you really cared about. Would just get that stuff off me. I'm killing myself. So maybe we need to split those as well.
I actually think that, sorry for hopping in, is that splitting more in between the 3 parts of the game, the balance-wise, is a great thing actually, because something that is OP or really strong in sPvP might not be as strong in World War or PvE. So splitting more is definitely the right approach.
Right.
Yeah, the concern there is you need to be careful so that players don't get confused when they go between the 3 areas. But I do think that there's a balance to be had.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of making tweaks to abilities and whatnot, this was asked in the thread, and it's kind of been a question that's been on everyone's mind. Not everyone, but a lot of people's mind, anyways. How exactly are balance changes tested at ArenaNet?
Sure.
Like, how do you guys do it internally?
So, like we've said, we've basically got the ability to test things just in dungeons or in PvP, World versus World. I think people know this, but we have a lot of high-level players who actually do test stuff for us. They talk to us, they give us ideas, they give us feedback. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but some of them actually have my phone number, some of them have my email, and I'll just get emails and texts about like, hey, this so-and-so change I think is too strong, and I'll just call somebody up or I'll send them an email. Okay, cool, let's talk about it. What do you think would be better? So we listen to those guys. At the same time, we try to protect all the 3 player bases, PvP, World versus World, and PvE, separately, because as exactly you guys have just brought up, there's different concerns in each of those. There's different builds that work well in each of those. So we have to basically balance all those things, as well as just having a lot of internal testing on our own, where we have nights where we'll just get 20 or 30 devs together, and we'll just rotate in and out on different things. We'll have just sessions while we're actually going to have like a meeting, for instance, later this afternoon to test something where we'll just get 7 or 8 devs together. We'll have 5 people play something, and the others will just sit there and just watch, and they'll just talk about, is this too hard? Is this too easy? What can we change? So those are the types of things that we do.
All right. Okay, so say you guys pick a balance change. Like what? Okay, so like we just saw, like, I'm going to use this as an example. Some things in the patch that came in are kind of strong. How long, like what's the timeline like for getting a change in to maybe bring things down?
You've got a few weeks at any point. The way that we do our patches, you guys have seen that we come out every couple of weeks. We can put out a patch. Even today, we had a couple of things that were going out that were being fixed. So we can put out patches pretty often if we need to. We try not to do that too much because we don't want to disrupt you guys. If we wanted to, if we didn't care about the player base, we would just patch as soon as we wanted to with anything and just fix things all the time. The problem with that, obviously, is we have to balance between making sure that things are balanced, up to the minute, just as fast as we can, as opposed to making sure that we don't interrupt you guys too much, because every time we put out a patch, you got to get a new build. So we try to be careful with those things. So for instance, we might put out something, we'll put it out for a couple of weeks, let people play it, and then we'll just go ahead and lock it down and push it to the main build and say, okay, this patch, this little bitty piece of the patch, these balance numbers, these are good to go. So we'll kind of just do that type of stuff where we'll put it in, we'll play it with some of our internal testers, we'll play it as a company, and then we'll throw it out to the rest of you guys so you can play it live.
Okay. All right. I guess that's some good info for sure.
Sure.
I think I heard Cutie.
Oh yeah, one quick question. What do you guys think about in the future potentially having like a public test realm or beta environment where the public comes in and just gives you like macro feedback?
Yeah, we've actually talked about doing it. And again, when I say seriously, I mean like the directors of the company have gotten together to say, is this what we need to be doing? If you watch the forums, it's kind of interesting. So I'll just kind of explain to you guys kind of what we see. On the one hand is, why don't you let us test, give us a public test realm like other games have. And then in the couple posts down in the same thread is, don't make us test your stuff. We don't want beta stuff. We want it finished as soon as we touch it. So, we're trying to look at what the best thing is. We can't find a single voice from the community, although we understand that there are, obviously proponents for both of those opinions on the forums, which is why we haven't pulled the plug yet. Haven't fired that off because we're just having to wait to see. But it's definitely something that's come up at the directorial level for sure.
Well, now that the cat's out of the bag, maybe we'll see some more discussion on it, I guess.
Yeah. It's just those forum threads, you'll see them, they kind of go back and forth. So
I think that's a good change, if that's possible, if you guys can do that. I think with each of these major patches coming up like this last one, I think there should be at least some kind of alpha or beta notes posted up and go, hey guys, this is what we're thinking, this is the direction we're thinking. Maybe not even a beta server, because it depends on what your resources are.
Right.
But this is what we're thinking, guys. It's up for change. Let's hear some feedback. There's some crazy ideas out there in the public forums, but there's a few good ones that pop up. So I think it would be Crouch is over there laughing. He knows
there's a couple, man. There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple.
All right. Cool. Well, that's some good info, and I'm glad you guys have made that. Maybe this is asking a little bit too much, but you mentioned there's a lot of higher level players in there. I'm assuming there's a lot of really PvE orientated people as well. You said you want to maintain the balance.
Right.
How do you guys go about finding these players? Do you just kind of keep an eye out for people that are contributing well on the forums? How would someone put themselves as like a front runner for getting into this?
A lot of times it's just, if you stand out on the forums as being constructive, you can be analytical. You don't get into flame wars with people. You have manners, you have dignity, those types of things. I've also, some people have just talked to me and just been throwing out some really good ideas, and I'll just sit there and, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'll actually just sit in Heart of the Mist and I'll take my tag off and I'll just find different places to hide, and I'll just listen to map chat. And sometimes I'll just use somebody in map chat, make some really good points, and I'm like, I'll just message them right there, on the spot and just say, hey, I saw you bringing up some points about, A. Do you want to talk about that real quick? And people have been really, really open to giving me some suggestions and stuff. Or they'll say, hey, I put this thing up on the forums. Like, yeah, actually, I read your thread. Here's some thoughts that I had on it as a developer. How would you respond to that with the proposal that you propounded on the forums? So there's just a lot of different ways. Basically, we just watch the community to see who's contributing and who's, being positive and putting forth some really good ideas. And we say, I don't care if you're a dev or if you're a 16-year-old kid. Like, a good idea is a good idea. I don't really care where it comes from. So that's kind of how I look at it.
All right, cool. I see it's getting spammed in chat quite a bit, and we had it written down anyways. So that worked out, I guess. New game modes. We talked about it a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago. I don't remember when it was. Anyways, I know it was something you guys were looking at. Is there any updates on that?
Yeah. I mean, we're just playing around with some new game modes. We're trying to do things that help the game, help to foster the type of things that our game is good at. One of the things that keeps coming up is capture the flag, and that's I don't know that works well in our game. We've actually tried that internally. It's really hard. You kind of see a little bit of that. You kind of get more of a push feel out of one of the maps that we actually have out live right now. I think that it's much easier to push. If you can imagine a flag in a game, imagine pushing it through the other team rather than pulling it away. Like you kind of just get it and just run back to your base. They can't catch you at that point. They can't do anything. If you just have a bunch of evades, as you guys have seen on Spirit Watch, they can't touch you. They can't catch you. It doesn't really play that well. Even though people say, oh, we want this. It's like, with some of our mechanics guys, it doesn't play out so well. But a push thing where I have to push through your defenses might work better. So that's something that we're kind of trying. So we have a few other ideas we're throwing around, watching other games as well. Just the other games that are popular right now in the esports world. Just some other games that maybe are not hugely popular, but have some great mechanics. We're just kind of watching all those places.
Are you looking for something to complement Conquest? Maybe kind of be like a sister game mode to it, or something to replace it?
Yeah, well, it depends, right? If you look at different games, some games just have one game type. StarCraft 2 is a great example. It kind of just has one game type. That's really all that it's got. When you play StarCraft 2, you're talking about the base game that they have. But even like League of Legends, they have different types of games that kind of work together, some better than others. You look at like Call of Duty, like Black Ops, they have multiple game types that kind of all work together. Some better, I would argue, than others. But we're kind of looking at, what type of game do we want to be? As we've said before, we don't want to split players up too much. We don't want you guys saying, oh, I only play this game type, I only play that game type, I'm only good at A, I can't play B at all. So we're making sure that we don't split people up, but we also want to give some variety as well. So we're trying to balance those two things.
Okay. Conquest. I guess I'll just start with Supcutie and go around kind of and just talking about it, because it is like our preferred game type, or it's the chosen game type, I guess.
Sure.
So, Cutie, do you think that Conquest is like the actual game type that should be like, pushed forward and kind of developed further? I mean, obviously it's one that we have right now. I think it's pretty decent. I think it's really interesting because we have the secondary objectives that come into play with it, and it really changes every map. Every map is played differently than the next one. Anyways, just your take on it, Cutie.
Yeah, I mean, that was that's kind of just a decision that was made by the developers, that they just chose that game type through their testing and through the mechanics that they had, and they're like, okay, this game type works well, and that's just what they went with. And I think it's fine. I like the secondary objectives, and I think that you can take this game type to a competitive level for sure. I mean, I never imagined League of Legends game type getting as far as it did, but I mean, it's completely different than a standard deathmatch, which is what a lot of people talk about all the time. So I think you definitely shouldn't count Conquest out.
Sure.
All right, Bato?
Yeah, I think the same basically as well. But and that's kind of transitioning to the next stuff you have on that list, solo queue. Maybe you can add some different game types to solo queue, because Conquest in solo queue might not be as satisfying or rewarding when you play with a team, and you can coordinate better on that, and you need that on Conquest. So, deathmatch, for example, that might be fun in solo queue. You just hop in, quick game, deathmatch, was fun, GG, stuff like that.
I suggest implementing K-Pud's 10v10, beach only.
Yeah. Yeah.
No armor, only weapons. It's good times.
So much fun.
Anyways, Zombify, what do you think about Conquest?
I agree with Battosai. I think that, I guess it's just the way the solo queue works, and it might be just a deeper issue. But I like Conquest. It has more diversity. But with solo queue, it's kind of hard to balance that.
Right.
I want deathmatch. I'll straight up put it out there. I want deathmatch, but that's up to you guys being able to implement it in the proper way to where it would work out with that communication, just lack of communication as you're solo queuing, etc.
Yeah. And you look at the games, too, that have done deathmatch, even something like, the Counter-Strikes of the world, or the COD, that basically, even if it's just, let's kill each other, there's still a bomb that's still making, you have to respond to this bomb, I have to respond to this bomb. There's still that element of, it's a secondary mechanic. So that's one of the things we've talked about, is maybe we could try some of the maps and just turn off the cap points, and just see how they play with just the secondary, and just more focus on killing in secondary. So that's some stuff.
Fire, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Guild Lord only?
I agree.
Kills? That'd be pretty cool. Is that an option we'll maybe see in custom arenas?
Maybe so.
Maybe so? All right. I like that answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bato mentioned it. I guess we'll touch on it again because it has been alluded to quite a bit, and I feel like it's upon us soon. Solo queue.
Yep. It's still a priority. Still, I can't say how soon, because that always gets me in trouble, but it's looking pretty good. So, but I think you guys raised some great points. That's why we started to say, do we need to change out how some of our games play? Do we need to change out how some of these maps play? If it's 5 people who do not come into the game playing together. Maybe that changes the coordination, which is exactly what Bato brought up. Like, we've been thinking about that too. Does the game not play as well in solo queue that way? So something to think about for you guys.
Okay. And I think we mentioned before, but I just wanted to confirm this one more time. The solo queue will have a separate ladder?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Any plans to change the other ladder then for the group queuing? Is it still going to be individual? Do you think about maybe tweaking a little bit? Because it's going to be kind of more of like a team-based thing. So
there's different levels to that, right? There is one of the things that we've talked about, and it's actually made its way to the forums, which I'll talk about it real quick, is the idea of having a team ladder as well. That's just for the team, just for a guild. Or the problem that we can kind of get into, if you guys can imagine, let's say that you have 10 people in one guild and everybody wants to play at the same time. Well, then you have 2 sets of people trying to represent the same guild. So then it becomes a question for us, and this is the exact question that came up on the forums of like, oh, wait a second, does that mean that Group B can actually hurt Group A's status? Do they need to just split off and do 2 different guilds now all of a sudden? So that's one of the things that we're being very careful with. But we do want to do, if possible, not split up the players too much, but then have a place where solo players can play as well as really strong teams can play. So that's the end goal, is to make sure that both of those player types have somewhere that they can go that makes you guys feel like you're rewarded, but also not just like in 4, 5, 6 different ladders, because that's just too confusing. So.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go in a circle real quick here. I actually like the idea about the team queues and whatnot, or the team rating, but like on NA, we come from like this culture which we've always like kind of done like super pugs and whatnot, so it'd be very limiting, kind of limiting like. It's changing a little bit now because we have more teams coming up, but for a long time, like if you had like a rating attached to a team, like you probably would have stayed very low rating just because you changed teams constantly. I don't know, just something to think about. Cutie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, finding a team is hard. I mean, finding compatible personalities, matching schedules, maturity, patience, tenacity. And a lot of people just simply don't have the time, but they still want to experience competitive PvP. And obviously, I mean, this, so lucky to that. Yeah. And I do think that there needs to be a separate leaderboard for it. I do think also there needs to be a balance between not too many leaderboards. But I think also regarding teams versus guilds, I think just having teams would probably be the path that I would take personally. That would just alleviate the problem of, like people in a guild conflicting with wanting to play.
Sure.
Yeah. And then have like a team leaderboard. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No. I would agree on that as well. I think having like the solo queue and then a team queue basically would be better approach, at least from a competitive kind of view.
Sure. It's just, as you guys can imagine, once we start to do teams, you have to come up with, okay, the team entity. How is this registered on the ladder board? And then you have to look at, okay, in what way is a team not just a guild that's temporary, right? So like, then it becomes kind of confusing for players. Well, I have a team, but it's not really a guild. The guild's permanent, but I can just change out. Let's say that the 4 of you are playing together and then you add one more person. Is it still pretty much the same team, even though you've added one more person, or is it a completely new entity on the ladder board with that 5th person? If you look at games like StarCraft, when they do a 2-on-2 ladder, 3-on-3 ladder, World of Warcraft, you have all these different teams. Sometimes you have to lock into a team if you're going to play like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. So the problem becomes, what's the difference between a team and a guild, and are we just confusing people? You know what I mean? Since we already have the guild entity in Guild Wars 2, should we try to use that more? Those are some of the questions that we're asking as developers. So you guys are kind of explaining the problem very well.
Yeah, no, I think having like a cap for how many people can be on a team is important. But I think that you can, and you should be able to invite different people to the team, and the players can change. But I think WoW did a great job with like personal rating. I think that was their solution to that problem. And I mean that could be something to look at.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Supcutie. I think WoW did a good job in that aspect of you have your team, but then within that team you have an internal rating, so you know which players are mainly playing for that team and which are just came there or sub, etc.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Well, I guess we'll start touching on balance a little bit over the last patch. This last patch was the biggest balance patch in the game so far. I guess that's an accurate statement. Kind of controversial a little bit, but I guess anytime that there's sweeping changes, it will be. No matter, someone's always going to be upset or someone's going to be ecstatic about it. So I guess the class on everyone's minds right now is going to be Necromancer, and that's why we brought Zombify on.
Sure.
And so we can talk about that a little bit here. So I just want to hear from John first. So I've played it a little bit. It seems pretty strong. I don't think it's like super game breaker or anything like that, but it does seem like the Condi application on, especially like with the bleeding, being able to stack up the burning, and the addition. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. The addition of Torment with the burning in the same patch seems kind of like just like the perfect storm for Condi application.
Yeah.
How do you feel like where it's at now, like before patch compared to now?
I need to choose my words carefully so I don't get bludgeoned by the community. I think if the person understands the class, whoever's playing the Necro, well, one, this patch raised the skill floor for the class. It's a lot easier to be more effective on the class now. I'll say that. But now, if the person truly knows how to handle it, I'm going to say it's OP. I'm going to say it's very, very borderline OP. We didn't get sustain in terms of being able to stay in, but we got a ton of counter pressure. A ton. Yeah. And within that counter pressure, if you know how to play the class, you know how to position, all those things that you need to learn how to do as a Necro, you can wipe a team. You can straight up carry.
Sure.
So, and I'm only saying it's going to be OP based on the combination of terror and burning. That's what most of these people are seeing damage spikes going, oh my gosh, Necro's crazy OP. Torment's nice, Torment hurts, but I think it's mainly the terror and the burning.
I agree.
And it was game changing. I was having success to an extent prior to the patch. It was harder, but
sure.
I was able to put out enough pressure for my team. Maybe it's just our team comp worked well, and I had good peels from my fellow teammates. But right now, like I said, it's very, very borderline touching into the OP area.
Okay.
And maybe it needs to be relooked at and rebalanced. And that's why I was like, I have to choose my words carefully, because the community's like, we finally got buffs, we finally got loved, and now they're probably going to come at me throwing rocks and stuff.
As long as it's you and not me, I'm fine with it. You got those guns. You can take care of yourself, man. So.
Fight them off.
How about you guys?
So Bato, I think you were talking about moving the trait. I think you should mention that.
Oh yeah, there's a pretty good post on the forums. I think Shella made it, and he suggested some change to Doomfire to make it just add Torment. Yeah, to add Torment instead of the burning, and move the Terror trait to Grandmaster tier, because it's a really strong and defining trait for the Necromancer, and that's something you want to have in a Grandmaster trait.
Sure.
I can't remember it completely on top of my head, but I think it's in the sPvP sub-forums in the Necromancer SOAC thread. Yeah, I'll have to check on that. I can link it to you later.
Sure.
I'd say maybe nerf the damage coefficient to terror, so you don't completely destroy a ton of builds, forcing them into, if they want Doomfire, it pigeonhole them into a certain build. So maybe nerf the damage coefficient, so you're not getting these crazy spikes.
So that's definitely something to consider. One thing we've already done is, if you guys don't know, the Sigil of Paralyzation, if you're familiar with it, actually increases stun duration, was increasing fear durations, which is not intended. That's already been fixed. So those fears that are eating everyone's face off is... The way that the math works, you're going to be losing about 20 to 30% off some of those fears now with the change. Before, if you didn't know, those things would stack so high. So
that's correct.
It's not that the ticks of, like, terror was one thing, but the fact that you were getting tick after tick after tick was not right. So with that sigil changing, that's going to bring down those fear durations a lot. So that's going to be one thing. I do think that one of the things, too, that when you look at it is that the bleeds that you get up, let's say that most people are running right now is like, let's say a 30-30, 10-0-0 is kind of a pretty standard thing that you would see. That's going to be probably Scepter and then offhand Warhorn, or Scepter, offhand Dagger, and then a Staff on the other hand. The 2 from the Scepter is going to be applying 3 bleeds. The 5 is another 2. The 2 from the first, your mark on your staff, number 2, is going to be 3. So that's going to be 3, 6, 8 different bleeds you can do on top of Scepter 1 spam. That's a lot of bleeds. A lot of people, I think, discount how powerful those are. We talked about Torment earlier. I think Torment's really important in that it's just another thing that's eating up Condi cleanse spots. That just means that more bleeds are sticking, more poisons are sticking. You know what I mean? Because that's just sitting there eating up those cleanse spots.
It's also covering that burning.
It's covering up more stuff. And then you have the weaknesses coming out, you have the chills coming out. It's a lot of just that control. And that's the style we want, but yeah, I think it's a little bit too strong. So we'll have to adjust that. And like I said, we've already adjusted the sigil that was making the fears longer than they should have been.
Well, on that note, I think that was a good adjustment. I'm glad you guys caught that. I personally experimented with that sigil too, but I don't think everyone was running around with that sigil right now.
I don't think because they didn't realize that it was actually doing
exactly. A few of us knew, and then there was a thread that got posted up, but it dropped to page 2 or 3, and not too many people saw it.
Yeah, we're going to change that. I do think that one of the other things you're going to see us doing is we want to, so the sustain that you brought up, Zombify, we want to talk about how the Necro is going to be getting more Death Shroud generation on the main hand, so number 1 through 5, and bringing it off more of the, so right now you can do a lot of cool things with Spectrals, but it kind of forces you to take Spectrals if you want to have Death Shroud, and we want every Necro to be able to have Death Shroud. So we'll be playing with those numbers to give you some more, the ability to sustain and fight and generate more Death Shroud, kind of like a warrior does. They can kind of generate that adrenaline. They don't have to bring utilities to get you adrenaline. They just get it all the time. So that's kind of what we want to do. And in doing that, we'll give them some more sustain, which means we'll have to bring that damage down a little bit more. So we're going to try to balance it that way, is what we're hoping. Another thing, too, is that for warriors, so that's another thing. I guess, can we just segue into the warrior?
Do it, man.
Well, can I ask something real fast before we do that?
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it, yeah.
As you're talking about Death Shroud, I don't know if I didn't see an answer last time, but what about letting healing go through Death Shroud? What's your idea on that?
We got to be careful with it, and here's why. Right now, the Necro, we've kind of got to balance that. He's kind of doing his own thing with the Death Shroud, and he can't be healed because of it. There was a time when, I'll just throw you guys out exactly why we're not doing that yet. There was a time when we could do stuff like that, and it was really dangerous because the tank Necro could generate so much Death Shroud and healing and stuff, and prot, it just couldn't be killed. Like 2, 3, 4 people could not get it down because
it was beta 2?
Yeah, exactly. It was generating so much stuff, you couldn't take it down because the prot was shaving everything down. The Death Shroud was generating too quickly. It could stay in Death Shroud. It would pop out, get healed, go back in, get some more healing. It was just way too sustainable. So that's one of those things. We don't want to go back to that, but we want to give them a little bit more sustainability than they have now, but bring down that counter pressure. A lot of the Necros, though, they complained about we have no counter pressure. This build, they got some, a little bit too much, but at least they've got some now. So what was I going to talk about? Oh, the warrior heals. The reason we didn't do those is we didn't feel like we had enough testing on those in all areas of the game. We felt like in PvP that might have been the right call. We were afraid of World versus World. We were afraid of PvE. We missed some meetings where we would see people play it and we go, oh wow. We would look at it and go, wow, that could be too strong. It just raised questions in our minds about maybe we shouldn't do this. So that's why we decided to pull the warrior heals back. But that is one of those things we want to split. So we'll be splitting the warrior heals, and then that's when those changes that some people saw, changes like that will go in. I can't say all the details, but some stuff that's even better than what you guys have seen will go in for the warrior heals and PvP and World v. World. Because in PvE, I don't know if you guys have played PvE with a warrior, but they're kind of okay in PvE. They can do.
They're kind of okay.
Decent damage. Yeah.
They're all right, I guess.
Kind of okay. So
if you bring 4 of them, I guess you'll do all right in your dungeons.
You do okay.
Yeah. All right. Is that all we had for the warrior, chap? I know we need to get a warrior representative on the show sometime, man.
Yeah, we do. I'll just
man.
represent warriors. Why can't I get into PvP teams? So Berserker stance, that's one of those things you guys saw that we changed, that all incoming conditions, once you activate it, are reduced greatly. It's only 4 seconds, though. We were kind of hesitant on that change, so we didn't go too overboard with it. So you're going to see that utility specifically going up. Now you see the Cleansing Ire, which is really cool because anytime that you use an Adrenaline skill, you get to rip off some condies again. But we think that the actual Berserker stance itself could probably go up in duration to be a little bit stronger than it is now. So they have like Endure Pain for physical stuff, and then you would have Berserker stance for absorbing all the incoming condies. So we want them to have that ability to really be sturdy and stay in there. We're also playing around with the idea of splitting up their health pools in PvE and World v. World and PvP. So maybe the warrior just gets just a flat health buff as well as just flat healing, just to make them that sturdy body that can just stay in the fight. It can stay in the pocket if it needs to, and it's healing with some better heals than what it's got right now. So those are kind of the ideas we have for warrior right now.
I had a quick thing about warrior. In terms of class diversity, I know a lot of people are concerned about the dissonance between risk reward relative to other classes on warrior, and is that like intrinsic to their design? Because I know that they'll just run in, and I know H-Man, he wasn't taking Endure Pain in the highly competitive scene because he literally told me, he's like, yeah, I just run in, do a bunch of damage and die, and just try to win the team fight with my damage. So I was wondering if you had thoughts on that.
That's our fault. I think that's just the balance, right? That's kind of the only place that he felt like he could kind of pull down, shave maybe the damage a little bit to get some more sustainability, but it didn't matter because they just didn't have the healing. They didn't have the Condi cleanse to matter anyway. So why not just go all in, try to get a kill, and then go down is what it felt like for a lot of warriors, I think. So that's why we want to give them more sustainability. Same thing as a Necro, sustainability, and then maybe give them some more outs. I think that those two classes in particular, though, they need to have stronger defensive capabilities because they can't really jump out of fights the way that other classes can. And that's kind of by design. We want them to kind of be locked into a fight, they're able to sustain through it. And right now, I just don't feel like they can do that as well as they need to. So that's something we've got to keep working on. So.
All right, I want to talk about. I was going to start. We'll talk about Thief. I'm just going to start off with one little comment here. The changes to Shadow Trap, I think, have been received. People are pretty polarized on it. I mean, Thieves obviously love it, but I think everyone else is a little. And I know Supcutie's got a lot to say on the subject. Just being able to leave Trap at wherever and having it there for pretty much ages, and being able to teleport back better than Mesmer.
It's going to get a duration on it. Yeah, already that's going to go in pretty quickly. Right now, I mean, you guys probably already know this. You can just leave it at a Lord. You can leave it at an NPC. You can leave it anywhere you want, and it's just there forever. And then as soon as somebody trips it, you go back if you want to. So it's just we need to put a duration on that thing, as well as we might do some other changes down the road. But that's the first thing we want to do to see if we can bring that back in line.
Okay.
Right now it's too good.
What about I think Cutie mentioned it, the visibility thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Folly. I don't remember. Anyways,
I think it was Folly.
Okay, yeah. So what about making it like a little bit visible? I mean, I guess like the whole point of it's like a trap, so you're not supposed to see it or whatever. But
that's the debate, right? Because like, what's the counterplay, right? If you see a portal on the ground, at least like for instance, if you're Zombify, you can just start throwing marks on that thing, and as soon as he comes through, he's going to get marked up when he comes through. But it's invisible for the thief, right? Which is the way that the rest of their stuff works. So we've also talked about maybe there is a cast time for going back whenever you want to go back. To actually execute it, you have to sit there for a couple seconds and then go back. So you're kind of vulnerable during that time. You could be dazed during that time, for instance. So it kind of gives some counterplay to it while still maintaining the cohesiveness of all the traps being invisible, which kind of keeps it consistent design-wise. So those are some of the ideas that we're playing with. If you guys have other ideas, we would love to hear them, but we're trying to balance it out such that it's consistent with the rest of the thief's traps while still feeling cool for the thief, as well as having counterplay for the person against it.
Mm-hmm.
I know our thief is loving Shadow Trap at the moment, so that's all I can say.
I bet.
He's showing me some pretty cool tricks, but you know.
All right, I don't have anything for Thief personally. I mean, I can't think. What are the other changes that came through with the patch on Thief? Oh, I guess there's a lot of the SD changes, right?
Yeah, nerfed SD, which was needed in my opinion.
Yeah, I think everyone. Unless you're a thief, you agree.
I think even if you are a thief, you probably
sorry, Jumper.
Agree. Yeah. That 1-on-3 was too easy.
All right, I'm seeing this getting spammed in chat quite a bit here, and I know I'm not supposed to be reading chat, but
okay.
And this is why we brought Battosai. This is your time, man. It's your time to shine. Let's talk about Rangers.
Go.
So
Okay.
We'll let Battosai lead off here and kind of just give us your overall thoughts about it, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I will just start off with the major issues the community had with the recent patch, which would be the pet damage nerf, and not having any compensation for it. Well, at least it seems like this. That's the one trait change you did to Companion's Might, which is a really good change because you can, if you do it right, you can actually deal more damage. But then that still leaves, the short bow range nerf. Is there any way of it returning back to its old range by possibly a trait? Because in PvE or World v World, it was a good weapon, but I don't think it was quite as dominant as in sPvP.
Sure. Did you have other questions, or do you want to just go back?
Oh yeah, of course. I have a few more things that I actually really like to see on the Ranger, and that would fix probably a lot of issues the Ranger currently has.
Okay.
That'd be more active condition clearing, because there's a lot of passive stuff going on the Ranger, and especially the prominent Beastmaster build, which shined in passive condition clearing and passive source of damage being the pet.
Right.
So, like shifting the active condition clearing and not being forced into wilderness survival, already forcing it down the bunkerish road, would be opening up a lot of more viable build choices also. And that would be like my favorite actually, if the other pet skills could be used by the player and directly be controlled by the player. Because, for example, you run a longbow and a Valkyrie build with the Scholar runes and all that stuff that is increasing your damage when you stay high up on health, then suddenly Moa would be viable because it could heal on demand.
Mm-hmm.
It just would open up so much more stuff for the Rangers, and I think you could adjust from there, because Rangers are currently just forced down the condition stuff, so power Rangers are not as viable as condition Rangers at the moment, so because of the low scaling due to the pet being a source of direct damage.
Right.
Also,
keep going. I'm just writing these down, so we'll talk about them.
Okay. Yeah. One more thing about spirits. That's been an issue for mainly PvE and World War, because I feel they're in a pretty good and strong spot in sPvP due to the recent changes, but they're not quite cutting it in PvE in World v. World because there's much more damage going on, and well, it's not. You can't really position themselves that good, especially in World v. World. There's so much AoE going on. You might have some. Well, there's obviously a maximum number of targets that can be hit by AoE, but yeah, it's not. They're not survivable enough to make an impact.
Sure.
So, one thing, maybe add a toggle to make them follow, or just stay like that. That would be an option before making them invulnerable, which would be too strong maybe in some scenario.
Right. Okay. I can just go through those real quick. Oh, do you have any others, or was that the Jux?
No, that was, yeah.
Okay. So the first one, short bow range. That's possible, maybe in a Grandmaster. The thing that we wanted to do with the short bow range, we brought it down. It's also consistent with what the Thief has as well for short bow range. We needed to be careful because if you have it too high, then it's just going to overshadow whatever you can do with a longbow. And that's what we were seeing in a lot of places. On the forums, I was reading the Ranger forums, a suggestion was, why don't you put the short bow back up to where it was and then increase the longbow to be even more. The problem with that is that in a lot of places that can actually break parts of PvE because you can actually aggro things that are so far away. You're actually screwing up some of the tripwires and the triggers that are actually placed in PvE stuff. Same thing in World versus World. Some of the way that stuff works is it's actually using things that bounce in and off the map in front of you. So triggers, tripwires, polygons, if you can imagine, that are on the map. You can sometimes break those if your range is too far, which is why we can't increase the longbow range. So because we can't increase the longbow range too much more, to make it kind of viable, we have to bring the shortbow down so that at least the longbow says, I have more range. But having said that, we also agree that you guys are kind of locked into a lot of Condi specs right now. If it's not Spirits, it's a BM, or it's probably going to be a Trap Ranger, which I think is still viable, but again, it's Condis, right? So we think that the longbow needs a little bit of help. I'll jump ahead to number 4, which was Spirits and World v. World and the health. We agree, especially in PvE as well. I think that the pets and the spirits and stuff like that needs more sustainability in PvE because of all the AoE, and World v. World because of all the AoE. So in the same way that you saw for Mesmers, we split off their stuff so that they could have stronger things in PvE because there's so much more damage than in PvP. So we like that approach. It's been working well. So we want to do more of that where we take the health for a lot of the, let's just call them minions, for lack of a better word, even though it's literally minions for the Necro, so that in PvE, those things are tougher. This could even be stuff like turrets for engineers in dungeons might need to have more health because they have to be placed in positions where they're going to be taking AoE damage. But if you want to help your team with a turret, then I've got to jump in there, I've got to put down my turrets. They're going to take damage, so they need some more sustainability in those fights in order to be viable. So that's one of those things where we might just have to increase that for all types of minions and stuff like that, so that in PvE and World v. World, they have actually more base hit points and armor than they would in sPvP. So we totally agree with that. The power stuff, also, we just looking at longbow, I was playing a lot the other day. I don't really like how the weapon flows, really. I think that maybe what we should do is we should consolidate some of those weapons like we did with the Sword Warrior. If you guys saw, we took Final Thrust and moved it to the 3. The 1 is where you get your cripple now. You have the 2 that's going to be able to jump in and close ranks. We like the way that feels a lot more now. So the longbow probably needs some help there. I think we might consolidate, if we can, 2 or 3 of those skills into just one skill, and then maybe put in another skill there that would help them to have more of a power-based potential instead of being Condi-based, which is kind of what the Ranger suffers from right now. Let me see here. That's 2, that's 3. Active Condi clearing, that's another thing too that I agree with you. I like active Condi clearing for everybody. I like it for everybody in the game because I think that it's a really cool play of, if you're a Condi-based class, you're trying to pressure that person down to get them to blow that Condi clear, but you want to save just enough after that. After it's gone, then you can overload. You know what I mean? That's the cool thing. If it's passive, then you as the Ranger, you don't really have as much control over it. It's just Empathic Bond just going off, right? It's just doing its own thing, and then maybe you actually brought the SIGs, you can do a little bit more, but there's really not cool play to it back and forth. There's not the mind game of you trying to save it as long as you can and me trying to overwhelm it. So I like active stuff more. So we'll be looking at that for sure.
It's also more rewarding to have the active stuff going on. That's because you can actually outplay someone and not just rely on the passive stuff and just lay back, okay, my pet's going to do that, or my Condi clear sticking.
Yep. But to your other point about having actual more control over the pet, that's one of those things we debated for a while, and I think I've given this answer before. We're just afraid about putting the skill, which is what Zombify talked about earlier with the Necro. We don't want that ceiling, the floor to the class, to go up too high, where you actually have to be able to micro the pet as well as your character, like to actually micro each and every single skill. For really high players like you guys who have the APM to actually do that, that's awesome. But for new players, that's really overwhelming. You can imagine that some games that are really popular right now, like League of Legends has 4 skills, and that's it. Like we're talking about having another entity in the world that I've got to watch that runs around. I control his skills as well as my own skills, as well as swapping to a different weapon set. It's just a lot of stuff. So maybe down the road we could do something like that, but right now it just feels like that might be too overwhelming for a player that's coming into the game.
And just leaving it at passive, so you have like a toggle again where you can like shift in between. I don't know, or just adding toggles, like you can take this ability off toggle and you toggle it, and it's going to be the next in the chain. So it's not real active control, but
it just queues it up,
still,
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to add more control, because I feel you could do so much more with the Ranger, and it would solve so many problems the Ranger currently has, just by doing that.
Okay, I'll write it down. I'll talk to the rest of the guys about it. So.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, we got Supcutie here representing Mesmer. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't use my browser right now, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the major changes. I think it was that the blurred frenzy thing changing to, I guess this is the core way it changed this last patch. Just overall, how you feeling about the Mesmer?
So Temporal Curtain got a 1 second cooldown before you can use the pull after putting it down, and Blurred Frenzy got a slight cooldown increase, and it can also be interrupted by like Shocking Aura or the Daze shield from NGs. I think those are both fine. I knew before the Temporal Curtain nerf happened, I was talking about how there was no counterplay, so I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think that the changes, like the quickness when you interrupt and the might when you interrupt and the other Grandmasters that you added and changed, I think those are good, but there's still no way I would take those over the Shatter spec. Like boon removal and being able to use Distortion whenever I want with Illusionary Persona and creating clones when I dodge, like those are just too good.
Sure.
And that, I'm not saying like nerf those, but like it's just, I wouldn't even consider going deep into Chaos or Inspiration, really, at least in my current role. I know that, if we really theory crafted, we might be able to come up, like my team, we might be able to come up, with a Mesmer build that does use that sort of thing, is more like a CC/support, since damage got shifted more to like Necro and Burst LE. Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of trying to really just optimize the class and use everything as best as possible, I think the Shatter spec really is like still an Apex Predator build. And I tried using Halting Strike. That was a really good change. But because of me using Greatsword and where I stand and try to like my positioning, and because I'm such a good target since I have Illusion of Life and Moa and Portal, I don't really get interrupts off that much, and so it's still not really attractive to me for my current role. But that said, I know that these changes have made positive impacts for a lot of other Mesmers and PvE and World v World and other specs and stuff. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Sure. So we've seen some people in PvE obviously using that style of build in a stronger way because they see more tells from a creature. They can tell exactly when they're going to be casting, and they get a lot more. They're more accurate with their interrupts, whereas in constructed PvP without a casting bar, it's really hard to see those sometimes. Sometimes you're just not in position. Perhaps you're actually using LOS blocking. You're not even in the position to actually see what you need to be doing. But the fact that it is being seen in other places is really cool. Mm. But again, maybe it's one of those things where, again, we need to split it a little bit more. But I just don't even know if that would help you, from what I hear you saying, if it did 1,000 damage more every single time you interrupted. Maybe that wouldn't actually be something that you would bring. But let's say that it did 40,000 damage every time you interrupted.
Right.
I bring that all of a sudden, right? And every now and then I just insta-give somebody, right? So there's probably a number there somewhere that makes that usable. But it sounds like what I hear you saying is that some of those things are just not viable yet. They're not the safe guaranteed damage that you get out of just shatters and boon stripping and all that kind of stuff.
Just holding strike real quick. I mean, I used it for a while. I really tried it out, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, if it did interrupt, I mean, it was basically almost like getting a whole new shatter on a squishy target, like a whole new mine rack.
Right.
But for example, like on Niflhel, if I'm standing above keep, like a lot of the clones that I'm spawning, like physically actually can't get to the fight, like because they're up above, right?
Right.
And so I can't even daze that, like with diversion. I could only use, I could only push or pull, which is a positioning thing, and that's of course that's that can change with positioning.
Right.
But like I said, because of how attractive of a target I am, some of my positioning can't really change too much. But anyway, other than that, I do think that you could balance in a way that you could pick a number that is attractive. However, making one ability OP is, I don't think, is the preferred method of trying to balance out other things.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I switched back to Mind Rack. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because this is the exact opposite of what happened. Forgive me for saying this with Necro though. Like Necro went from not 0, but a little bit below average to like top tier now.
Yeah.
Where these mesmer changes a little bit more metered, a little bit more gradual. But it's something that still it can work. But with a little bit more work on it, it'll probably be something that's a little bit more balanced rather than just going from mesmer's strong now, and if like something crazy came in, who knows what kind of beast would have been unleashed.
Zombie had just asked about Phantasm in chat here. I think Phantasm, like the reason it's not seen so heavily in high level tournament play is just because the clones get killed. You can't really do as much versus Shatter in a team fight, especially since the utilities that you bring as Shatter. What were you gonna say?
I agree. No, the only reason I was asking for it was I saw a lot of people posting up in terms of PvE and World v World concern, what's going on with Phantasm. Since I don't know the exact changes that happened, I didn't keep up with the Mesmer changes, but apparently Phantasm did get hit. I'm correct?
Yeah.
We shifted around some, yeah.
Okay. I'm just asking for the general public because I agree with you, Supcutie. It's not going to bring the utility, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mainly the gist of what to take away is that the changes that did happen were good everywhere except in like PvP in like the mid and high tiers where there's no way I would still change from Shatter Spec.
Sure. But I would imagine though, and this is what we were kind of seeing with the Phantasm Mesmer, that at a back point, like kind of the same way that you would do like a BM Ranger. Like if they have a Phantasm, at the back point, you're just like, I really can't hang with that. I need to chill off of it. Whereas now what we're finding is that people will have that Phantasm and it's actually having a hard time, especially with like the NGs, with the Necros. I kill them really easily actually on my Warrior. Certain specs have been able to push that Phantasm Mesmer around a little bit. So you've actually got to think about it. Before it felt very, very, very dominant. And now there's at least play to it. So we're happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll jump classes here. Oh man, what we got left? I didn't write anything down. So we got Engineer, we got Guardian, we have
Sure.
What else? Is that it? Is that what's left? Oh my god, I know there's probably one
Guardian.
Elementalist.
Elementalist. There we go.
Ellie.
All right, so we'll just jump.
No one cares about that.
I guess we'll jump in with Guardian. I guess they've been kind of like the most. I guess balanced. I mean, I think the least amount of like crazy changes have come in for Guardian since the game's come out, and they're still like in a really good spot. And it's always just been like slight tweaks. I think they're in a pretty good spot. There wasn't a ton of changes last patch, was there? There was the new trait that you get. Was it 10% of your power to Conti damage? Is that what it was, or was it the other way around?
They got a few different tools. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Go ahead.
No, with the Guardian, we kind of like. We did a really, really big push a while ago on the Guardian to really get them to a good spot, and that's kind of been paying off for a while now because a lot of the things that we do to them are just tweaks. If you look at the two elites that they have that are not the one that everyone takes, basically the two tomes, we're actually seeing some people run those now. There were a few things that you would use that actually would help everybody in your team, but not you, which kind of went counter to bringing an elite. Like I want to help. If I bring that and I'm in a one-on-one, it does me no good. So we're actually seeing some people use some of that stuff now. They've got some nasty skills. If you've not looked at those two elites, you should look at them again if you're a Guardian. They have some really nasty stuff. I've talked to a few high-level players who are actually really interested in Tome of Wrath right now because it has a disgusting knockdown on it. It's just, if you get it off, it's basically just team fight is done. It doesn't matter what they had. If it gets off, it's done. So people are really enjoying that. But yeah, like I said, they have a lot of just little bitty tweaks to bring things up, but we're seeing a lot of diversity on their weapons right now. I mean, I'm seeing like mace focus, mace shield, I'm seeing hammers, I'm seeing stabs, like I'm seeing a lot of stuff off the Guardian, so we're really excited about that. What do you guys think?
I think they're in a good spot. Like I mean, like you said, I think it was Control was the first one I saw post-patch using Tome of Wrath, and just being able to pop the quickness in fights has been pretty awesome. It's something we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, if you see all Guardians running, well, not all, but most Guardians running Renewed Focus, and if they do diverge from that, they generally run Tome of Courage for the for the group heal. And then seeing Khan come in and giving all the group utility, plus the knockdown, like it's actually been pretty. It's been interesting to watch them play, anyways.
Sure.
But I just think they're in a really good spot, man. Like they do their role well, and like their damage builds. I was playing with Carl last night, And we're joking because he like came in and like literally insta-gibbed someone like 100% to 0 with this. He's playing this. He calls it the Pokeball spec. He's playing Judge's Intervention with Hammer, and I saw him like one shot someone. It's actually like Guardian can do a lot, and I think they're really good still.
Yep.
And not a lot to talk about, to be honest. I don't really know. I don't even know what you could do to improve them, or like.
I do.
Well, there's a lot of things you can do to improve them, I guess. But like,
sure.
But do you want to? Is the question.
I'll just be completely honest. I played when I played Guild Wars 1, I was either flagger if we were afraid of the flag and I needed to win one-on-ones. Otherwise, I would move up into the midline and I'd play Mesmer, and I just loved interrupt Mesmer. That was my favorite thing in the whole world. And one of my favorite things that I loved was Shatter Hex, actually, which if you guys don't know, if somebody puts a Hex on one of my allies, I'd tell that ally, okay, go get in the line, dude, tell me when. And then he would say, okay, now. And I would shatter the Hex off, and you would just see like half the team just lose a quarter of their life, and he'll okay, put another one up there, and we would do like this. Long story short, I just love the skill. I love the play of it. The lights just went off in here, so we'll have to see how that works. We've got infrared now. Basically, so I like Smite Condition for the Guardian. I like the play of it. I like the idea that you kind of like take all the stuff that's on you and you use it against your opponent. I really like that feel. So we've been kicking around some other ideas on how to make Smite Condi stronger in World versus World and in PvE and PvP, and try to split it up in different ways so that it maybe does more damage for the Condis that are on me, or maybe it has, if I have a lot of Condis on me when I use it, it actually has a really fast cooldown so I can use it again real quick, and then if I have a few less, I can pop it again. Just the idea of playing off that skill a little bit more. I like to see more of that style of the punishing Guardian, who kind of just takes what you're trying to do and he uses it against you, and he beats you that way. So that's kind of what I like. How about you guys? Anything? No Guardian love? You guys don't care?
I think if you somehow implemented that, it'd shift the meta pretty far, especially since there's so many Necros running around right now.
Yeah.
I mean, cleanse is required, so if you did that, it would shift the meta, and I think that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. I think Guardian he stands up better to the current Necro than a lot of people do, just because of all the abilities and the cleanses and anything. So we don't want to do too much because Guardian's already, doing a good job with that. So just some ideas that we're kicking around.
And the corrupt boon nerf, so they're a little bit more stable against just getting insta-gibbed.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So I did forget the one profession here earlier, and chat's giving me crap for it. So we have Elementalist left, and now I've forgotten the other one. Actually, mine is Engineer. Thank you. My own class, actually. Good God. Good God. All right. We'll just hit. I guess we can talk about Ellie first.
Sure.
Go with that. I honestly can't think of. Yeah, Scepter Dagger's really strong, man.
Nuts.
It is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
The burst on it's pretty ridiculous. Can be, anyways.
Yep.
What were the changes last patch? I got off work and came right to do this. So I'm like spacing out right now. I usually don't work before I do the show. So what do we see in the last patch for the changes?
You guys want to talk, or I just feel like I'm talking again. Like I always do this at the state of the game.
They can jump in whenever they want.
I can say the biggest one was the Grandmaster trait and air. I know my team was personally messing around with it since we run 2 Ellies, and the on-demand burst that brings now is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
you could just constantly keep pressure up now, which I think that was the biggest change. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play Ellie.
It's pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really big, and also it gets less predictable, the airburst, so you can't really count the attunement recharges and all that. So it was overall at least for DPS, LA it was quite huge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Scepter Dagger still was strong before. It just this kind of gave it a little extra love. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's good. It's crazy, but it's good.
Oh,
do you think it's too good? Is it too strong? Is it manageable?
Yes and no. From what I've heard, a lot of Ellies are running around with Zerker now, full Zerker with this. Sure. It makes them really squishy. I know. If I got caught in a 1v1 versus an Ellie, it's gonna be if I get like a random dodge off, I can somewhat try and get a read on him, so to see the burst coming. Good chance I'm gonna win because he's just as squishy as me. But if he gets it off, he almost one-shots me. So I don't know if it's balanced, but there is some give to that reward. So
sure.
I mean, if someone else could speak up. And...
I think it takes a bit longer to really evaluate how strong it really is, because at first glimpse it seems really really strong, especially in coordinated play, because Ali can burst more often and provide more spikes with Mesmer, Sleeve, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, he kind of when he's running the circular, he's losing the sustainability and the survivability. So he's giving up some great heals he had before for the team. So
Yeah, exactly.
It could still be bad. It really depends. I can't really say anything.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
What about the Phoenix change? And now it goes like a million miles an hour.
Oh,
I've heard only good things from both
From Ellie's,
okay,
right?
Yeah, they can't shut up about how awesome Phoenix is now.
It's much more reliable if you're the Ellie. It's a lot easier to hit with right now. So
it hurts too.
Well, the
does
interesting
hurt.
thing was that, like, usually when you're trying to land like a Phoenix combo on someone, if you're running dagger offhand, you're already in range because you want to try to land Ring of Fire and Fire Grab.
Right.
And now there's like just it's not telegraphed at all. Like, there's no way you could dodge the Phoenix going in now. I just thought it was an interesting change. It kind of felt like it was out of nowhere. I didn't really feel like there was an issue with Phoenix beforehand. I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of the things we actually had a debate at John Peters' desk. He and I and Carl and Roy and Tyler, PvP Tyler, QA Tyler, who you guys know as Power. Like, there was just the six of us around his computer, just like, is this too fast? Is this too slow? So then John would do some more numbers, some different tweaks, reload it again. We'd look at it again. So we thought, let's try this. This feels pretty cool for the LA. If it's too strong, we'll bring it back a little bit. But before, I think it was John that actually brought it up, that it's just really hard to hit with. It felt like it just telegraphed too much. And it was almost, as soon as you saw it, it was just really hard to hit. And it was this big flapping Phoenix coming at you that you saw it, and it was just really easy. It telegraphed itself too much, we thought. So that's why we made that change.
I think it's a fair change. I mean, I know some of the tricks that Ellie's were doing with the backpedaling, purposely getting it to stay out longer, but I think it's a good change.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So, NG?
yeah, we'll do it, man. Let's do it.
Jump right in.
Yeah, I haven't really played a lot of specs since the patch. I'm still trying to hold on to my old ones. I'm kind of bad when it comes to that thing. I don't have a lot of time to theorycraft anymore.
Sure.
Oh, I got one question for you though, man. Elixir R.
You
Okay,
okay?
I can understand. I can understand taking away the stun break, man.
Sure.
But why did we add the half-second cast time on the endurance regen? Like,
Yeah,
it was like a nail in the coffin.
Well, it's one of those things that was one of those debatable, right? Some people said that completely killed the class off of one skill. Other people said that it was a fair change and the skill was doing too much as it was, which was kind of the opinion that we obviously took, because we said this one thing is just giving you the ability to get out of stuns. It's allowing you to reset a fight if you go down. You know what I mean? It was just doing a lot of stuff for one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the cast time was too much. We just felt that looking at it, it was basically requisite to play NG in a lot of comps. Like, it was just so important, and it basically didn't have the pressure on your utility slots that some of the other classes have. Like for a warrior, if they want to be tanky at all, they have to bring Endure Pain a lot of times, and if they brought that, they haven't brought something else. Whereas that NG slot, you were getting the ability to revive somebody as well as to get your endurance back, and you can also break stun with it all off one skill, which was very, very powerful. So that's why we had to make that change.
Yeah, it was definitely very strong, and it was. I put it in like every build of mine. It doesn't matter if I was playing Power or Condi. I definitely
it was good.
It was awesome, and we still see it used to great effect. We saw it in the ESL tournament on Sunday. Yeah, it's still really good. I think it was Moby that was running it for. I don't remember what team he was playing on, but yeah, it still works. It did change everything. Obviously, putting in the I guess it wasn't really in the patch notes, but putting the stun break in the Elixir R, or pardon me, not Elixir R, but the Elixir gun rather was a good change. I like that too. It opens up a lot of things. I like running triple kit right now. Actually, it's really fun.
Cool.
And so there's some new things opened up, I guess, with the patch. It wasn't all bad. I am, however, seeing a lot in chat about turrets still. It's kind of work in progress, right?
Yeah. Turrets are just one of those things, and just like we go back to the question we had earlier about the ranger stuff in PvE, just in a lot of places, if they have too much CC, if they're too good, then it's like, okay, maybe they should be easy to kill. But then if they're easy to kill, maybe nobody brings them. So it's just making sure that we balance the offensive capability of each one of those and the shutdown capability, which is actually what's really important, right? Like the net gun specifically is really, really powerful. When you get that net off, the immob is really big. Mm-hmm. Balancing the offensive capabilities as well as how much damage can they take. Because the counter to that obviously is, let me blow up your turrets while I try to keep you at bay and try to reset the fight and get those down. So those numbers we just need to be really, really careful with, such that it's not, you just throw down all your turrets and there's just nothing anybody can do. They're just too strong, then they just CC you, they push you back, and the turrets win the game for you. So we just got to really balance those two things together. So yeah, that's what we're afraid of with those.
I do like rocket boots though. My fear is that it's gonna get toned down though. I feel like it's like Ride the Lightning on roids. It's like the old Ride the Lightning again. But it's better though because I don't transform.
Goes really far. It
does. It's fun. It's good. I like it. But yeah, when I'm using, I feel dirty when I use it sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. It gives you the ability to jump out of a fight, which is one of the things too. We said, okay, well maybe if they're not as durable with the Elixir Archange in a fight, maybe we give them more of the ability to leave a fight. So that's what we wanted to make sure that they still had that capability. And like we've said, not all classes really get that. The Warrior doesn't really get that. The Necro doesn't get that. They have that more. They're just going to stay in the pocket with you, and they're just going to clinch, if you will. They're just going to stay with you. Whereas the Engi's like, okay, I don't like this. I'm not really feeling this. I'm out. And then Inspector Gadget out. That's kind of the idea that came up with the Inspector Gadget out. So we said, okay, let's try that and see how it feels. So
I definitely like moving forward. It's cool. I like the change quite a bit. I used the old rocket boots in an old rifle spec I ran with rifle turret, and it was kind of sometimes you really regretted using it because you would get locked down. If you did it against the wall, you'd be stuck there for like a good 2 seconds while you kind of just took damage. But it's a good change. I like it. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it going forward. But yeah,
how about you guys?
Yeah, how do you like people
everybody else play too?
How do you like people leaping out of your Blur Frenzy Shatter combos?
I haven't experienced too many energies in tournament play that were leaping away from me, but I did play some Engie, and I really think it's a lot of fun.
Go
ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Just go.
I was just gonna say, like, if you combine it with, I think it was like slick shoes,
super speed.
and then plus swiftness, you just go so far.
You go really.
I think, it's pretty fun.
All right, so
okay.
that go ahead, Beto.
No, I was just about to talk about this. Like, Engineer is really good in 2v2s, for example. It's we've been testing around a bit, and by running the Elixir gun and that light field and having Ranger Healing Spring, and you kind of drop these not on top of each other, but kind of to the side. You can choose between the condition clearing and blast finishes in the water field. It's just really great synergy because the Engineer has a lot of tools which supplement other classes so good, and I really like that about Engineer. Yeah,
and that's the style we want out of the Engineer. That it's just kind of has a tool for everything, if you can imagine, and it's just kind of versatile. It's got a little bit of mobility. It can stay in a fight if it needs to. It can go with a pressure spec. It can do a Condi spec. It's got some survivability with the offhand shields, great. It's got some control with the pistol. We want them to have a little bit of everything. So that's kind of what we're aiming for with them, is to make sure they've got a little bit of everything that they can kind of fit into a lot of comps, just because of the versatility, which is inherent to the class.
All right. Before we shift off to this, I just want to say, so next time, I promise, guys, I see this in Shadow quite a bit, and I really have been slacking on this, I will get a Warrior. Mark my words. Next state of the game, we'll have a Warrior. We'll talk all about Brawn. We'll do it. We'll go down that dark road. Maybe I can go grab another Guardian again. It's been a while. So I can rustle up a Guardian from EU or NA. You guys can find me in game. My character name's Grouch if you guys want to throw your head in the ring or whatever. But Warrior and Guardian next time. Anyways, I just want to talk real quick about. So we saw ESL on Sunday. It was kind of cool. I got kind of thrust into it, but I think it went fairly well. It could be something interesting though for the competitive side of the game. What's your guys' take on it? Let's start with John.
No, I'd start with you guys. I've been talking too much.
All right, let's do it. Go ahead, Cutie.
No, I think it's great. I mean, more publicity, more tournaments, bigger events, more money. I mean, that's what attracts people. I think. I mean, it's just only good, pretty much.
Right.
I like it as well, but I think adding, when you launch the game, putting it in the launcher, just like this tournament is happening, just would get so much more people to watch the game and promote
it. Idea.
Promote the game more, because I think it's actually getting there. We're moving there, and it was a first step, and it was good. It was good, but I felt it could have been so much better with a bit more advertising going on.
I agree. I think any attention this game is getting is a good thing, especially since it was kind of had a bad start since it was lacking tools, and that was one of the major complaints. But now, since everything's here, it's reminding people that this game isn't dead. Its potential's still there, and it can go esports. I said it.
You said the word.
I said the word.
Oh man.
Get my pitchfork. Hold on.
Open the floodgates.
No, I think that I think that we're going to do a better job of advertising those things in the future. We've already had a few meetings on how to make sure that we do that better. I still think the numbers that you guys got, considering what was going on in the esport world that day, was amazing. there was a lot of other stuff going on, and the fact that you guys still pulled the numbers that you did was, I was like, I looked at my email again. I was at a business trip, and I was sitting there doing something, and then I looked down and I saw the numbers, and I was like, wait, really? With all the MLG stuff going on, they still, that is amazing. That is amazing. You guys did a great job. So I think it shows the potential the game has, that people wanted to watch it that badly, that they chose that over some other options. It's really good.
Yeah, big shout out to Hellseth once again for coming on last minute and running that with me. It was fun. So you mentioned like working on promotion and whatnot. Like what are you guys' plans? We kind of touch on this every once in a while, but I know you guys are like big into this kind of thing. Like what are we looking at in the next couple of months, man?
Trying to think how I say this without giving too much away. I would practice a lot if I were you guys. I would get with teams that you can stay with for a while, that you feel like you can kind of keep the drama low on, so that you guys can stay together and get your cohesion down and stuff like that. I think you're going to see a lot more tournaments this summer, a lot of things that you guys want to be in shape for, to use the term. So make sure that you're playing with the people that you would like to spend the summer with as far as those things go. I think when you look at stuff like Miss League, like that's I think going to probably blow up. I think that a lot of people are really interested in that type of thing. And from what I can tell, it seems like other people like ESL are watching and they're listening to those things. And I think that what we're going to see is a lot more opportunities for stuff like that. So I would just say, get with the teams that you feel comfortable with and start training for those things. Because from what I can tell, and some little birds, the other things will be coming up. So I would say be watching for those.
A little bird told John.
Little bird.
I'd like to talk to that bird sometime. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. We went a little bit over. We did start a little bit late, though. Like I said, guys, next time we'll bring on the Warrior for you guys. We'll bring a Guardian, and who knows what else we'll be doing next time around. We might. I don't know if we're gonna do another one this month. We might, because this was supposed to be June's. This was supposed to be just us guys, and then John came on. That was cool. I plan on doing like a players only one eventually here. Maybe having it might be a cluster, but we might get like 8 people in, like one for every profession. That'll be interesting, to say the least, I guess. Who knows? This is fun stuff, so let's play around with it. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, thanks, guys, for coming on. I appreciate it. It was some good discussion and whatnot.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was great, guys. Thanks.
Hey, guys, once again, this was the July episode of State of the Game. My name is Grouch. I had Supcutie here from Absolute Legends. I had Battosai from IDL. And Zombify from SOAC Red. Then, of course, we had John Sharp from ArenaNet. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.